Awesome.
Do you find that you need to coach some of your models to be comfortable expressing themselves in their artwork and your clothing and for your shows? And thinking about how you advocate for that.
Yeah.
Really being seen, but you have so many wonderful and different models. Do you find that you see yourself coaching them to do that?
I hardly do anything. All my performances are like complete. I mean, I make the clothes, but I like don't. I just give them kind of a tiny framework for how the performance goes. We never have even like rehearsals or anything. But once the people are in the clothing, they like instantly feel more powerful and excited. And then there's all these other folks around who are having fun. I also have usually I have an amazing stage manager who's my best friend from childhood, and she's just really good at dancing with people off stage to get them like warmed up. But I always just tell people, you know, like dance however you want. You literally, there's nothing, no wrong dance move. Like it's always a complete surprise what people are gonna do. Like yeah, like Alexis, the first time she performed, she came out in her power wheelchair. She like pumped her body, and then she like got up and twerked, and everyone went wild, and they were just like people were just screaming because they were just like, oh my god, she's twerking. And then she like always takes her elbow crutches and walks off, and is like, whatever, me. But yeah, I think like I do see a change in my models' personalities after they model for me. I've had a huge amount of people, like I never say no to any models. I say like what identities I'm trying to center or focus on. But if a person is like, I want to model, but like I'm not queer, I'm just disabled, I'm not going to say no, or vice versa. And then like almost 100% of the time when a person says that, like maybe a week after modeling, they'll be like, actually, I am queer and I am also trans. And then they'll like completely become like so out that it's like astounding. Or like people are like, oh, I'm just queer, but I'm not disabled. Is it okay if I model? I'll be like, sure. And then, yeah, almost 100% of the time too, they'll be like, oh, I actually had all these different disabilities since I was young, and I just like never really like to talk about them, or like, you know, I was taught to suppress any I don't know, feelings about them. But now like you've given me an outlet. I think the whole thing is about creating this community. When I did perform my first performance in Cincinnati, I had all of the models said that they felt like they didn't have community with each other. But then it turned out that lots of them were coworkers with each other, or like saw each other at school all the time, but they just didn't know each other in this specific context. And after they did this, then they started collaborating and doing all sorts of fun, amazing things. So yeah, it's like a lot about, I think the community of my really awesome models help. They'll like bring stuff out in each other. It's exciting.
I have a question. Yeah, let me see if I can find this one. I'm not obviously a person with a disability myself. I tend to find everyday not with time, which is difficult sometimes. Right? So they see you and they sitting out of bed and raising my children. That to me, that's not as hard as just
yeah.
And as you said, we're just like everybody else. Art is a very inspiring type of thing, right? So how do you balance the idea that once your art speaks for itself without being the reason just to pay attention to it? Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
It's a very good question.
And any of you can answer. I'm just
For me, for a long time throughout my life, I fought tooth and nail to even like associate me with the word disability, because the word to me perceives in some way that we're broken. The dis in front of it's like you're disengaged. It's like you've turned off, you're broken. There's something about you that just doesn't work. So I don't like the word disability. And I fought it for so long. And I still am iffy about when people tell me I'm an inspiration,
Mhm.
because I'm like one of those people that when you give me a compliment, I'm like, thank you. I don't really want to take, I'm humble about it.
Right.
And I actually wrote a poem about, what would they do if they could see me? Like, what I'm like on the inside, the insecurities, would they still call me an inspiration? So I have an issue with that, but because I don't want to be seen as she has a disability. Oh, yeah, and she wrote books.
Right.
It's a balance.
So I wonder if it's, and maybe everybody can take a stab at that. Yeah, let's do that, and then I'll share my. How do you feel? I mean,
I'm just going to make sure I understood what you said first. So what you're saying is you're asking how we strike a balance between our artwork standing on its own, when to mention your ability and when not to. Is that?
Like for me, if I do something, I don't want it this way. Well, he's inspired because he did something that's fairly normal, right?
Yeah, like inspiration porn.
Yes.
So
Okay.
for you all, like for art, it's usually because some people are looking to inspire, right? So you want to inspire someone with your art, but you don't want to be an inspiration to someone with a disability just because you have a disability. So how do you frame that?
I think that language is really important there. I think I agree with what Elizabeth said. I don't particularly like the term disability either, and I actually recently engaged in an online discussion about this very issue. And I think that the show that we have going on tonight at the Pam Miller Downtown Arts Center is probably a best case scenario because there are people of all abilities showing artwork together. And so through that means we're normalizing something that was formerly carried a stigma with it. And so use of language and choosing to just focus on the art and the cause that's bringing us together, I think is really important. And I'm going to go ahead and pass this on because I feel like the other two will have valuable things to say about it.
Thank you. I totally agree on the assessment of that. No one likes the word, shall I put it in a sense, okay, I have had certain things being said, such as mental retardation. I do hate that. I've hated it all my life. And I struggled with it, trying to live with it. You can't help what you are. You are a human being just like everyone else, but everyone wants to label you as such. But that's not what you really are. You're being a person in general, striving to do better with yourself, outside yourself. That which is within you, you're trying to bring it outward, which is a spiritual part of you of who you really are. If anyone cannot see that, then there's something wrong. They don't see the aspect of who you truly are on the inside. There's a part of you that transcends of who you are. Your embodiment, your empowerment of your art speaks to you and to those outside from you. It shows them who you really are, not what they say you are. And that's what I want to say to that point.
If I can just jump in and then, this is very pertinent to as we thought about how we were going to put on our programming for both the visual art show and related events, thinking obviously we went round and round about the language we use. I don't know if it's an extremely difficult thing because especially for us, the last thing we want to do is use any kind of exclusionary or offensive language. So that's why we kind of landed on the idea of when we titled the exhibit, having ability in giant letters and referencing disability and then just striking it out. One thing we needed to make sure we did is we want to make sure that people that work in the field, potentially work with people with disabilities or are interested. We wanted, in terms of our promotion, we did have to get that out there so that we could have people come and learn. At the same time, we did not want the visual art exhibit nor the artists to feel like that was really the theme, you know? And your point, actually, Emily, was really valuable in that the fact that we decided to make sure we included, this exhibit is for artists of all ages and abilities, period. And the fact that we have professional artists showing with, you know, amateur artists or developing artists, whatever term you want to use. We have professional artists that come from, in my opinion, that are doing professional level work coming from studio work from Latitude. And so it'll be interesting to see when people view the exhibit, you know, how do they compare some of the professional, so-called professional artists to other artists that are in the show. So I think that helps break down what you're talking about. But I know what you mean in terms of, is the spotlight, are people coming because we said, hey, this is about disability, or are they coming strictly for the value of the work, right? So are they only paying attention because it's based on this topic? And I don't know that I have a great answer for that, other than I think, you know, what Reggie said, and that he seems to always just come back to what he's doing is for his benefit and from his heart. And I feel like if you're doing the work for that reason, doesn't matter, right? You know, but I think we all still crave validation in some ways, but that's a tricky one. But I think a question that deserves a lot more conversation, you know.
Yeah, I guess for me, I like the word disability. I don't see it as like being like opposite of ability. I'm very much in kind of the camp of Lawrence Carter Long, who's part of the Disability Defense Fund here in the U.S., and he is very much into saying the word, where it's like it doesn't matter if it's prefix first or person first language, like saying like disabled person or person with disability. It just is trying to destigmatize the word of disability. So yeah, I mean, when I had started, I was reading a lot of crip theory, so I was obsessing over that a lot. But then so many people don't really know what that is. So I felt like I kind of skipped ahead to like too political and radical, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna draw back and just talk about disability. I don't like differently abled. I don't like those things very much. Or yeah, of course, what Reggie said is horrifying to hear from other people. But yeah, I'm for me, since I look like most people treat me as a teenager or like a child, so like I've given a lot of like how you were talking about, like, did you write that yourself? Like I literally gave a whole lecture, workshop, and performance at the Whitney Museum in New York, and these three fashion people who I know, they were there the whole time. Afterwards, they came up and they're like, oh, so you're a model? Like, where did you get this clothes? And I was like, the whole lecture was about me making the clothes. What is happening? Like nobody believes that I could run a clothing line. I've run this clothing line for 5 years, so I started it when I was like, I don't know, 24? I don't know. 20, I can't remember now. But I've been making pretty serious kind of couture work with my big chain, like the very custom made chainmail work, since I was an early teen, like since I was 15. And when I was in high school, I always was having a lot of like, I don't know, crises in my brain, talking to the teachers there, being like, I want to be taken seriously as an artist, period, and not just as an artist for my age. I do think that my identities are extremely important to me. Being queer, being non-binary, being disabled, being Filipinx. Those are all huge parts of me, and I want to show those aspects off. But yeah, like I don't know. Yeah, so. But I do love Stella Young's talk on Not Your Inspiration. Yeah, talking about that. Yeah, inspiration porn. People are always like, "Oh my God!" Like, how did? Yeah, like most of my models are not. A lot of them aren't performers before, but they'll start performing a lot. But then I also have some other people who are pretty serious performers. I like having the mix because I think I hate like New York Fashion Week models more than anything. And I want to, show off my models' identities. But I do hear some weird things sometimes from people being like, I feel like it's fine to say that like the work, like if a piece of work is inspirational, if you actually are going to do something, like if it actually inspires you to then do something about it. But then it's like if it's just saying like, oh, that's inspirational and that's the end of it, that doesn't really seem, then it isn't inspirational and you are just being patronizing. Yeah. But I see huge action from like a lot of the times, like there will be some people who see my work and then completely change their lives and completely like start being huge advocates of access and accessibility. And then I'm like, okay, this was actually inspirational to them. So that's fine to me. I hope that people will do that.
Do you feel like, so just going back to the term disability and disabled, correct me if I'm understanding, that you kind of view it as just one part of an identity, whereas just like someone might say they're African American, or I'm Persian American, you know, if I happen to be, but so if we just get it out there, is that the idea? Get it out there and not make it be some defining factor of who you are, just another.
It's just another aspect, right? But it is hugely important. I mean, it is what has shaped my life. Like through grade school and high school, I was having panic attacks in class like almost every day, some years. So it was, I mean, yeah. Right. Now it's like more not apparent, but it was very apparent then. And the teachers are like, I don't know what you're going to do when you get to high school because you're not going to be able to do this all the time. Like, you got to get over it. And I was like, well, my brain, I'm stuck here. So yeah, if I just tell people like, oh, I have anxiety and panic disorder or things, and like these are things that if I'm having an anxiety attack, you could do that. Like these things will help and these things will be very bad. I think it's helpful. Like I like to know other people's access needs. I think it's important because otherwise, like you might have an access need that's very urgent, and then you're just kind of like chilling, holding it in. You're like, oh my God, I really need to do this thing, but this person is just yakking at me, and I gotta go.
Well, actually, I had a learning moment, and actually, I was gonna beat the gentleman that was next to me. Yeah. But when he entered the room, just my gut reaction was to shake his hand, you know, and so like knowing what I would like to know, how does he like to be greeted, you know, like things like you're talking about. So, you know, knowing us expressing our accessibility needs, or, you know, how we like to be greeted. I think you're right. I mean, if you put that out there, that can break down some barriers right away. Totally. People know how we can be comfortable with each other.
Yeah, some people don't like to be sometimes I don't like to be touched. It might make it worse, even if it's like a loving or even a good friend, like who I've hugged many times before. Right. Sometimes if I'm very triggered, I'm like, it'll make me freak out more if you hug me. I have another thing where people touch my head a lot, like without permission, which happens a lot to lots of different kinds of disabled folks, or like pregnant folks, or Black folks with their hair, like different things where people will just kind of touch you. I'm interested in playing with that. So for my own self, I don't think other people necessarily have to, but for myself, I'll like when I meet somebody and a person looks like they really want to touch my head, I'll be like, you can touch my head. Like I'll give them permission right away so that I don't just feel, I don't feel like this like victim of just somebody like groping my head.
Petting you.
Yeah, people pet me a lot, which is also interesting as like a small person or like as I know.
Do you feel that?
I'm over here like in my head going, amen.
Yeah.
Now people are always saying things to me like, I bet you're glad that school's out this summer.
Oh my God. You're like, I'm a grown ass person. Like, what are you talking about? Do you think I'm a teacher?
Things like, can you drive a car? And I'm like, I don't have one right now, but with the right stuff, yeah.
Right.
And then like in the dating world, they're like, can you go on normal dates? And I'm like, no.
Yeah, what's
I
a
have to
normal
wrap myself in
Right.
bubble wrap.
What is a normal date? I'd like to know about.
No, but there is, I get a lot of like, sometimes, people, they want to, grab this.
Oh gosh.
Little kids I'm okay with, because little kids are cute and they don't know any better.
Right.
I always tell little kids, don't be afraid to ask me something.
Mhm.
Come up to me and talk. Don't just come up to me and go,
Yeah.
that's very uncomfortable. In Kroger or Walmart. Very uncomfortable. But I don't like it when those parents that come up to get their kids and shove them away and go,
Yeah.
don't look at her. Don't look
Yeah,
at her.
that's always so terrible.
Yeah, it's okay. Don't teach them to fear people
Totally.
that look different.
Mhm.
But I get a lot of you're so cute,
Right.
pat on the head.
Do we have any questions moving along yet? I think at this point, I don't know, we've covered, this is one of those things like, I think we could probably go on for hours with these discussions. I mean, this topic, I want to make it a point that we're not trying to define anything here really, or, I don't think we can begin to do justice to I think the topic, even when we're just talking about creativity and disability or creativity in the arts. I think this deserves so much more exploration, but I think we've hit on some really powerful stuff. I just kind of want to go through the panel one more time and just kind of give you guys an opportunity if there's anything else any story you want to tell or anything important you want to share, anything that you've learned or feel different about just by being involved in this today. And maybe we can just go in order. We'll start with you, Elizabeth.
I've probably learned that I'm far harder on myself than I thought, and I should probably forgive myself for some of the negativity that I tell myself sometimes. And just that I like to say, and this sounds cliche, don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a person by their cover. Get to know them and see what they're about first.
So kind of like glancing back really quick at the question that we just shared on and going out into the world today. I've learned some things today, definitely, and I have come to be able to appreciate viewpoints that don't necessarily click together on this complex issue. For example, Elizabeth stated that she does not like the term disability, whereas Sky said that she embraces it, which I think underlines the fact that it's like anything else, it's going to be different for the individual. And so it's important to get to know someone on a person-centered basis before making assumptions about how you treat a specific population of people. And from my experience about a week ago, where actually on social media was trying to raise awareness for not using the R word, because we're at a point where we are on the cusp of change where this word is no longer acceptable, kind of like how the N word is no longer acceptable. And so I think the challenge of being where we're at with that is that you're going to have a lot of people who try to defend an old way of doing things or an old school of thought simply because they do not have the same exposure to diversity. And so just being gentle with that and being bold about raising that awareness is really important. And it can be difficult to do, like with people, like knowing when to choose your battles with it. And so I would just invite everybody that's here today to kind of reflect on ways you can choose to be active about steering people away from language that is exclusive.
I have to agree with Emily on that. The language barrier within the context of disabilities, and we have to really accept the fact of who we are, not for what we have been taught in a relative sense. When the language, the N word and the R word, is no longer accepted. Yes, that's true. Well, in the auspice of what I have learned so far as of today, and I'm looking at everyone here within this room, I have learned to accept for who I am, not from where I come from. And I have learned so much today from everyone here, from hearing their testimonies of their life experiences and expectancies of what they have become and what they're going to continue to do. Such as Elizabeth, Sky, Emily, myself, and others here. I have learned so much today from each and every one that is here. And from Belle, thank you for all that you have said to each and every one of us. Thank you so much. It is a nice feeling to know that someone respects our views and for who we are, not for what we look like. And I just want to say that I am very humbled to meet everyone that's here today. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on that subject as well.
Thank you.
Bell says, thank all of you. I'm in Louisville. I hope for the chance to meet you one day.
Thanks. That's good to know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just really glad to be here, and I want to thank you all for coming. And yeah, I'll probably be doing more performances in Covington, so or Cincinnati
Close
area.
by.
So yeah.
So I wanted also, is there anyone in the audience that wants to share anything they've learned today, or feelings, story, whatever you like?
I think the three most important things is to know people for themselves. Whether it's disability or whatever the term is. You gotta know the name. You just gotta know who they are. And acceptance and love. Because if you know their name, if you accept them, and you love them, no matter what the differences are, you'll have a friend no matter what. And we can all learn from each other. We can all learn different things from each other. Whether it's poetry, the art, the clothing. The most important thing is the person. And if we can accept that, then this world will be a better place. I don't know about everybody else, but that's how I just wanted to say it. And I think all you guys are
Beautiful, thank you. I think I don't speak for myself, but I feel like there's a good amount of love in this room. And I think some people that are watching online have been kind of channeling love our way too. So you're absolutely right. We need to act more. We need to ask each other's names more and smile and get to know each other. I mean, that will be crucial across any challenge we have. You know? So thank you. That was an excellent point. Would anyone else like to share a story, anything? No?
Well, I think it's a lot how people, like, as a person, just step out of their boundaries and be something great, but yet the way the world thinks that special needs community is, or just people with disabilities, they don't understand that there's great beauty and art behind all of that. It's sad somehow people just don't reach out to that area. But I believe all people are as equal, that we all have a disability within our own right. And I guess that's one thing the world needs to understand, as we all have disability in our own right. But sometimes the world doesn't see that way. And one day I would like the world to maybe open up. And that would be great. Yes. Yes. The world should see it as a whole, that we all have a disability in our own rights. And one day I hope that day will happen.
We're a lot more alike than we are different.
Exactly, we're all human.
We're all frail, but we're all powerful too. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Well, I think we're kind of close to wrapping up, but we do have a little time. So if anybody still has, do you have a thought over there?
I just want to say I'm the director of HDI, and I want to thank you all so much for coming. As you heard, this is our first seminar of the fall, and you all set an incredibly high bar. So we appreciate your time so much.
Thank you.
And we hope that everyone can do that to the gallery hopefully as well.
Well, thank you so much for having us. Thanks to HDI, to all of our partners, all of our artists, all of our creatives, all of our magic and wonderful people in this room, and that also took the time to get online.
May I say hello to her?
Yeah.
Is it okay to shake her hand?
Yeah.
That's a nice hand.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's fine.
I'm one of those people that has to touch.
Yeah, this is our show and tell period.
Wow.
So just once again, thanks to everyone online. Thanks to everyone here. And you can find out more information about upcoming seminars from HDI on their website. So please support the great work that HDI does. Please come down to the gallery hop tonight from 5 to 8. You'll be able to meet some of these wonderful artists and see really an amazing art exhibit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How did I do so?